Here we have a serious problem. America is addicted to oil.
New York Times foreign affairs columnist, author of The World is Flat, and three-time winner of the Pulitzer Prize, Thomas L. Friedman, explores what is at stake and what is the cure for America's addiction to oil.
No doubt about it, America is addicted to oil and has been for many years. Americans are more dependent than ever on oil. A few facts. Transportation in the United States burns up 14 million barrels of oil every day. America, only 4.5% of the world's population, consumes 1/4 of the world's oil. Nearly half of this goes to passenger vehicles, cars, SUVs, light trucks. We've had shortages and price spikes before, but this is definitely not your parents' energy crisis. Today, kicking the habit is an urgent necessity. Urgent because we are funding both sides in the war on terrorism. The U.S. military with our tax dollars, and supporters of Islamic militants through our gasoline purchases.
Every major national security problem has roots in oil. Terrorists see that oil is our Achilles heel.
For those of us who remember the oil crises of the 1970s, there's an unmistakable sense of déjà vu. Back then, the price of gasoline skyrocketed, and it led to a burst of innovation in alternative energy and fuel efficiency. In fact, from 1977 to 1985, our oil imports from the Persian Gulf fell 87%, and our total consumption dropped 17%. But we did so well, it caused an oil glut, and OPEC oil ministers had a ready response.
In the 70s, Sheikh Yamani, speaking for OPEC in London, said, "We will drop the price of oil, destroy those investments on Wall Street, and then put the price of oil back," which is exactly what they have done every single decade.
So what's different this time? A lot. Islamist terrorism has changed the geopolitical equation, and petrodollars are now funding networks of Islamic militants. People of all political stripes are beginning to recognize just how toxic this dependence on oil is for American foreign policy, and it's spawning new political alliances with some very strange bedfellows.
Gal and Annie have a bumper sticker that says, Osama bin Laden hates this car.
The Set America Free Coalition is dedicated to getting the U.S. off foreign oil. The group ranges from dyed-in-the-wool environmentalists to a former head of the CIA, from Republican and Democratic lawmakers to leaders of the evangelical movement.
Pretty eclectic group.
How in the world did you people find each other?
We're all aware that there are evil people feverishly working on ways to kill us. We are dependent on our energy resources from people who worship death and have drawn a bullseye on our back.
We face immediate threats in terms of security and the environment. We need to do something now. Efficiency and alternatives to oil are no longer a luxury. It's a necessity to make this shift.
The coalition has lobbied Congress for a bipartisan bill that will reduce our dependence on oil and encourage super fuel-efficient vehicles. The rationale for the legislation is hard to dispute.
House will be in order.
Every major national security problem we're facing has roots in oil.
What do you mean?
Where does the money come from for Iran to develop weapons of mass destruction? It's not from adding microchips. Where did the Pakistanis get the money to buy nuclear weapon technology from the Chinese? We are at war with an ideology, and that ideology is radical Islam. And we cannot win the war against radical Islam as long as we are funding the other side of the war. In World War II, we bombed the supply chains, and in this war, we're not doing that. We're doing, in fact, just the opposite. Not only we're not cutting off their supply chains, we're sending more money in their direction.
Looking even stupider than what Lenin described when he said the capitalists will sell us the rope with which we hang them. We're doing much worse than that. We're funding the rope for the hanging of ourselves. As far as I'm concerned, it's just nuts.
I often wonder if Iran's President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad would be threatening to wipe Israel off the map or be defying the world by building a nuclear arms program if oil were $20 a barrel instead of around $70. I don't think so. I have a theory that the price of oil and the pace of freedom always move in opposite directions in states run by oil-rich autocrats like Iran. When the prices go up, freedoms go down. When the prices go down, freedoms go up. In the late 1990s, when oil was less than $20 a barrel, a reformist president was elected in Iran, and reformist politicians and newspapers flowered. A growing youth movement inspired hope. Today, though, with oil around $70 a barrel, the reformers have either been put down or bought off. In Russia, when oil was $20 a barrel, President Putin looked like the man who would finally deliver on the promise of a free and democratic Russia. At $70 a barrel, he looks more like the old Soviet dictators, seizing big Russian companies and intimidating his opponents. To be sure, other factors than oil are at work. Still, is it just a coincidence that the first Arab Gulf state to start running out of oil, Bahrain, is also the first to hold a free and fair election in which women could not only vote, but even run for office?
The need for alternatives to oil, this issue is something that we can all agree on. We want to convince people this is a win-win situation. It is good for the environment, it is good for our national security, it is good for our economy, it is good for the future of our kids. And believe it or not, it is also good for the future of the people in the Middle East.
Why?
Because any government that can generate a lot of money just by drilling holes in the ground has no incentive whatsoever to educate kids. There's no reason to send women to school. There's no reason to involve people in the political process. There is no reason to do anything but drill holes in the ground, take the black stuff, sell it in the global market for $60 a barrel, and life is great, and build a few more palaces.
The Set America Free Coalition is trying to redefine what a realistic American energy policy should be. The old realism was that it's naive to think alternatives to oil could make a difference. But that is so wrong. A classic example of pre-9/11 thinking. While there's no 12-step program for kicking our oil addiction, there's a lot we could do right now, today, to get the oil monkey off our backs.
I call all this a potential coalition between the tree huggers, the do-gooders, the sodbusters, the cheap hawks, and the evangelicals. That's a pretty good-sized coalition.